To your online art lessons. What I thought we'd do today is just something slightly different. I know we've been looking at our animal project, which I know quite a few of you enjoyed. Some of you found it quite challenging as well, though, and it was quite a challenging project. So just thought we'd do like a one-off lesson today, something slightly different, just so you know everyone, you're not doing everything so repetitive all the time. So we're going to look at Andy Goldsworthy, and it's going to you're going to need to create like a sculpture like him, basically. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about him today, and we're just going to have a little look at him as an artist and the type of work that he produces as well. So he's a really cool artist. He's more nature inspired, so it does kind of relate to that whole nature thing we've been looking at the last few lessons. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. So this lesson is going to go over 2 lessons. I suggest you do the research this lesson and then the sculpture next lesson, or vice versa. That will make sense as we go through. So if you're going to do the research, you might want to do that on a computer, or you might want to do it handwritten and print images off. You might want to do it on a PowerPoint. That's entirely up to you, and then you can submit that bit to me on class charts. Or this lesson, you might want to do the sculpture in Andy Goldsworthy's style. And submit that to me, and the next lesson do the other one that you didn't do, if that makes sense. Okay, so it depends which one you're doing. If you're doing the sculpture, then you need a device that you can take a photograph on. Okay, go on to the next slide. So your lesson is to learn about nature artist Andy Goldsworthy and his famous artwork inspired by nature. To learn how to create your own sculptures in the style of Andy Goldsworthy, your learning outcome is to create an artist page on Andy Goldsworthy, to create a nature-inspired sculpture in the style of Andy Goldsworthy, and photograph your sculpture and add to your research page. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, but remember this is over 2 lessons, not just 1. So you're doing our activity for today. It should take you about 5 minutes. Are these questions on the left? So how do you think Andy Goldsworthy's work has been created? So you can see the images on the right there. What do you like about his work? What do you think he decided to create? Why do you think he decided to create artwork in this particular style? How could Andy Goldsworthy be making a statement with his artwork? Which of the artworks on the right do you like the most and why? Okay, so quite self-explanatory questions there. It's a matter of opinion, really, your opinion. So you've got 5 minutes to answer those questions in full sentences. Pause this video now. Okay, so the next few slides you'll be learning about Andy Goldsworthy, so it should answer quite a few of those questions nicely, and why he decided to create these beautiful sculptures. So I personally like the ones, the leaves on the water, because this is something that would be quite challenging to create. Obviously, you know, you'd expect them all to move around quite a lot, but also it's very authentically pleasing to look at, so that kind of means it's quite creative and quite nice to look at. So you should have an answer explaining which piece of artwork you prefer the most. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. So this is Andy Goldsworthy. He is a British artist known for his site-specific installations involving natural materials and the passage of time. So Goldsworthy's work of art are not intended to stick around for long. Okay, so he's born in July 29th, 1956 in Cheshire. The artist spent his teenage years working as a farm labourer in rural England before going on to study at Bradford College of Art and later Preston. Working as both sculptor and photographer, Goldsworthy crafts his installations made entirely of natural elements: trees, ice, mud, rocks, flowers. These remarkable visions all eventually decay, melt, or disintegrate, so they kind of disappear, okay, because obviously that's nature. So reflecting the passage of time as well as the seasons, the images highlight that most things in life do not last. We can merely enjoy them for a moment before they fade away. Goldsworthy carefully documents their collaborations with nature through photography before they start to decay or simply get blown away. It's not about art, he says. He has explained, it's just about life and the need to understand that a lot of things in life do not last. So, you know, it's quite meaningful what he's trying to portray in his artwork. So in 1985, the artist moved to Scotland, where he began producing work inspired by Robert Smithson and the land art practitioners from the 1960s and 1970s. Over the following decades, he became associated with the environmental art movement alongside Richard Long and Chris Drury. Using materials such as wood, stone, and snow, Andy Goldsworthy's land art explores our connection with nature. Land art is art that is made directly in the landscape, sculpting the land itself into earthworks, or making structures into the landscape using natural materials such as rocks or twigs. Land art is usually documented in artworks using photographs, maps, which the artist could exhibit in a gallery. Land arts also make land art in the gallery by bringing in material from landscape and using it to create installations. So at the bottom there, I've just added in a nice little video that's 4 minutes 25 seconds, and it's Andy Goldsworthy explaining his sculptures, explaining why he does it, how he does it, that type of thing. It's not very long, and I think it's just a nice video just to give you a bit of an idea of what he's all about. So again, you'll need to access that through the PDF version that I've attached on class charts. Okay, so I've given you quite a lot of information there, and then you've got that video there, so hopefully that'll give you a nice overview of, you know, who he is as an artist. Okay, so I want you to watch that video and then we'll go on to the next slide. So you should have watched his video now, and it's quite a nice little introduction to him as well. What I would like you to do, and this is entirely up to you, you might want to focus and look at the weather outside, see what it's like today. If it's all right, you might want to do the sculpture, submit that today, and then next lesson do the research, or you might want to do the research this lesson and then do the sculpture next lesson. Okay, so lesson 1 and 2 tasks: create an artist research double page board or PowerPoint on Andy Goldsworthy. It should include the following: title, Andy Goldsworthy as normal, at least 6 photographs of his work neatly presented and annotated, so you'd get that from offline, you know, on the internet. So just search which images you find quite inspiring and include those in your presentation. Information on Andy Goldsworthy and about him and his artwork. So I've given you quite a lot anyway. You've had a video, and obviously there's further information on the internet that you can do your own research on if you want any more information on him. A photograph of a sculpture you have created, so I suppose this bit is the lesson 2 bit, from nature in his style. You may want to create more than one sculpture, so it might just be you do the first one quite quickly and then you might want to do the second one. Take a photograph of these and add them to your artist research board, presentation, etc. Okay, so I've just put there in red writing, you might want to do the research lesson 1 and then the sculpture lesson 2, or vice versa. Okay, so it's entirely up to you how you do it. Hopefully that's nice and clear. We'll go on to the next slide quickly. So these are some quite intent examples. You've got basically, let me just get my cursor and I can point at the screen. So we've got the title, Andy Goldsworthy. We've got some selection of his images. Obviously you don't need this many for this example here. It's quite a lot, but you know, just a few. I said about 6. And then you need some information on him. So talk about what it is you like about those particular artworks, talk about him as the artist, that type of thing. I then want you to get your own photographs of a sculpture that you've created in the same style as Andy Goldsworthy. Okay, so you're creating a sculpture in the style of Andy Goldsworthy. Another example here, we've got Andy Goldsworthy. So this is quite a nice fun idea. They've created his name in sort of stones, and then they've taken a photograph of that and put that in their sketchbook, which is quite cool. Got a selection of images there of his work. They've done a pencil copy. I would quite like you to do an actual copy, but you know, if you can't do that, then pencil copy's fine of one of his works. So it's entirely up to you how you decide to do this, how you decide to present it. Be creative. You're all very good at actually presenting, although we've not been in school for a little while now. That is something that I think you guys need to keep practicing, is how you're presenting your work. And because you're at home, you've got access to the internet, I suggest, if you're unsure how to do a bit of research on how you can actually present your work. There's loads of examples on Pinterest, Google, YouTube, that type of thing. Okay, you've got access to all of those sort of sites. So if you do struggle with that element, just go, oh, you know, presenting a sketchbook. And sometimes less is more. Sometimes keeping something more simpler actually looks better than trying to overdo it. Okay, so it looks more professional a lot of times. Okay, so we'll go on to the next slide. when you have finished, I'd like you to upload your work onto class charts as normal. I'll be checking for completion and we'll be giving you all feedback and achievement points. It could be lesson 1, you do your artist research, upload that, and then lesson 2, sculpture, upload that. Or it could be this lesson, lesson 1, create the sculpture, photograph it, submit this, and then your second lesson, lesson 2, on this, do the artist research on Auntie Goldsworthy and submit this. Okay, so you're submitting something for each lesson still, but it's just either the sculpture or the artist research. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, email me if you've got any questions though. Well done, and I'll speak to you next lesson.